In this video, I'm going to be looking at these resin huts from Scotia Grendle.
Scruffy Crow.
So you'll have seen me unboxing these in my recent video. Pretty cool little huts. I went out and found these. These are pump clips actually. If anyone can tell me where I can get a material that's like this, it's like a dense foam. Yeah, so it's like a dense foam. You can kind of mark it with sort of tools, but it's quite durable. It doesn't warp or anything when you put glue or anything on it. It makes really good bases. It doesn't weigh much. So if anyone can tell me what this is called, where I can pick some up, I'd be greatly appreciative. So it's like a 2mm thick sort of stiff foam. So it's way easier to work with than MDF. Yeah, but my supply has dried up. In fact, my supply dried up when I got made redundant from the brewery a few years ago. So yeah, I've started by taking the outer layers off this. It means they're quite sort of sticky, but that's alright because we're going to put all sorts of stuff on top of them. I'm now going to sort of bevel the edges a little bit. I'm going to try and keep this oval shape best I can, so try not to go too deep. But at the same time, I kind of want it to sort of go down to a narrower edge than that. That's why I'm doing this now as well, because my desk is all kinds of messy from the fences that I'm making, that you've probably already seen the video for, and some other bits and pieces. So trying to do all the messy jobs at once. So there we go. Sort of beveled around the edge. A couple of places where I went a bit too deep, but that's kind of what I wanted. I'll do the other one now. Okay, so now we're going to look at the huts. So the bottoms, obviously, they've been poured into a mould like that, like a one-piece mould. So the bottoms of both pieces need a little bit of work. Not so much the bottoms of these, because I could just stick that straight down. But definitely the roof. So I've got a bit of 120 grit sandpaper here. I mean, you should probably wear a mask. You should probably wear a mask anytime you're sanding resin. But this stuff doesn't smell anywhere near as noxious as some stuff I've worked with, if I'm honest. Okay, so inside the building, there's some little bits there that need some work before the roof will go on properly. So yeah, I'm just going in with a knife initially, take out the worst of it. And then this stuff, all this stuff files really nicely. So finish off with the file, get it all nice and neat. Okay, so that should fit a lot nicer now. There does seem to be a specific way around. Oh, that's completely different. Yeah, that goes right on now. And I don't think I'm going to worry about any other cleanup on that. I'm going to give this top bit a bit of a sand, just to make sure that we've got a nice snug connection between the two parts. Couple of rings of glue on there. So there is a small gap around each one of these now. So I will go in with a bit of green stuff and just neaten that up, make it look like it's all one piece. But the way they've designed it with the rope around each bit here, that's really good for sort of hiding that join, I think. So I'm just putting a bead of glue all the way around the outside here and on this inside ring. I'm going to pop this down in the centre of the base as if it was a miniature. There we go. So there is pretty simple construction and it all based up. So I'll do exactly the same with the other one. I'm actually going to use this emery board for that little bit there, because the metal files are actually a little bit harsh on this kind of resin. So yeah, let's sort of polish that off with an emery board to get sort of more smooth finish. In general though, there's really not many places I'd want to tidy up. It looks like we've lost some of the rope detailing from around this pillar. I don't know if that's something I've done or if that's damage. There was like that when I got to me. There's a bit missing there as well. But that one looks more like a mould bubble. I already noticed that this bit was gone, but I think that definitely was me. So there is a few places here I'm going to put a tiny bit of green stuff. But as far as the casting goes overall, this is very tidy. There's very few parts that I'd want to touch up. There's a couple of tiny little bubbles here and there. But all in all, for the amount of detail that's in some of these parts, and the sort of, I think you call this the polyurethane resin, it's like cheaper resin, I think. There's a tremendous amount of detail captured. I mean, I can tell that that was a bit of cloth. I don't know, it's been sculpted and it's picked up every single like thread detail on that. So yeah, these are actually moulded really nicely. So I'm still impressed with these. Just got these guys in a little bath of warm soapy water now. I can't find my downstairs toothbrush, so I'm just gonna give them a bit of a brush with this to try and get any mould release out of any creases there might be. I'll do it a bit more thoroughly than this in a second when I've got both hands free. And then we just need to leave them to dry for a little bit. Alright, my little huts are all dried up. And so yeah, like we said before, we've got some bits to look at. We've got some chipped rope on here, some gaps between the roof and the rest of these tusks. And again on here. So obviously we're going to reach for the green stuff. I'm running out. So I've gathered my two favourite sculpting tools here, my metal one and my rubber one. And I'm going to start on this most obvious gap, which I think we'll do in 2 stages. So I've got this nicely mixed up now, and I'm going to start with a thin sausage, which I'm just going to work along this gap. So starting from one end, I'm just going to force this into the gap and use the metal tool to keep that level with the surface behind it. Now in with the rubber tool, I'm just going to smooth down where that connects to the rest of the post. Applying quite a bit of pressure with this, just smoothing it in. So I'm going to use my finger a bit here and just drag that down, because I don't want to be able to see where the green stuff starts. Okay, so once we've got the gap filled, the next bit's going to be replace that rope. So I'm going to get another sausage of green stuff. I'm going to roll this out to about half the thickness of the rope. I'm going to fold the whole thing in half, neatly as we can. Like so. And then I'm going to twist that round like that. If we look at the other ropes, that's the effect we're going for, so we want to twist that a little bit tighter. As we're twisting, we can stretch it out. And then I'm going to put my best bit of this across the gap we want to fill. Manoeuvring it into place. I'm just going to sort of slice it off where it joins. And again on this side, sort of just slice that off where we don't need it. And now it's just a case of working this bit, the replacement bit, in to match these other 2 ends. Alright, it turns out that whole twisty thing was nonsense. What I've ended up doing is making a completely smooth shape from one side of the broken rope to the other. I've smoothed that all in, and now I'm happy with it. I'm actually just going to draw in the rope shapes, just doing diagonal lines across my nice smooth sausage. and some of them have ended up a bit sharp. So I'm just going to soften the whole lot down with my rubber sculpting tool. It's going to take a little bit of fine tuning, but I think it's basically what we're going for. So I'm going to copy that everywhere it's required. Okay, so the green stuff is all finished. As you can see, we've got all four corners and the ropes and everything all done to a state I'm pleased with. And then we've got a bit of PVA, a scrubby old brush, painted that around the bases here. Obviously I've got these resting on sheets of paper, and then I'm just going to pour on my same bird sign that I use on the bases of my models around the edges here. I'll leave them overnight to fully amalgamate and set in there, and then I'll chisel away any sand that's ended up anywhere we don't want it. Okay, so I've started these off with a lot of Rhinox hide, one of my favourite paints, and I've been thinking about how we're going to paint this. Initially I was thinking the thatch could be sort of yellow, but I had a look around my area and realised, I mean, the thatch where I live is normally dark brown to black, and I think that's going to work better. So these appear to be stones, so I'm going to do these stones in a dark grey. I'm going to do the hides in various greys and browns, I think, and then I think that'll work with sort of bone coloured tusks at the sides, and then a fairly dark top, and then an earthy outside. I'll not be finishing the base in this video because I haven't got access to all that at the moment, but eventually it'll be made to match in with my forest, which I've got a whole video on if you want to go and take a look how I finish those. Okay, so now I've got that grey in there. I've also just given them a little brush over with a bit of Celestia grey, showed a little bit of depth. I've also gone around and just given these hides some different base coats, just to separate them out, so I've got a bit of an idea of what I'm working with. I'm now going to go over with some Null Oil. I'm going to take this over my thatch to darken that down, and also into my stones to really pull out the gaps between the stones. I finished off the thatch with a bit of Bungman's Glow, and I have sort of got all my block colours down everywhere else, so it's sandy dust on the tusks and all the bones, and then some X38 on the ropes because I want them to look like sort of twisted leather. I've also dry brushed the bricks a little bit again to try and pick them out. I think I'm happy with the way they look now. And we've got a bit of Idran Flesh, my wood colour, in there, and I've been working on these pelts a little bit. Things here like behind the helmet and some more there. And I'm really not sure what they're meant to be. They almost look like little corals. I'm not sure about what to do with those. So now we're using some good old Agrax Earthshade to take it from that to this. So that'll lift out all the details in the bones, the wood grain above the door. It'll do some nice shadows between the leather and the tusks. Obviously it doesn't look great on the tusks because they're kind of wide open spaces. But what it has done is it's brought out all these wonderful little cracks. Alright, for the next stage I've got my wet palette out. I'm going to get some Menoth White base. So this is all for all the bone parts and the big horns again. And the way we're putting this on, as it dries it goes kind of slightly darker, it's more transparent. So I've got it watered down quite far. So I'll just be building these up layer by layer. What I'm more worried about is the big ones. I want to do a similar effect. I think I want stripes. But it's going to take me some time. I'm not really sure how it's going to end up looking. Okay, so that's all 8 of the sort of pillars done. I've touched up some of the skulls and done the beaks in grey. So I'll put a gradient on them in a second. And I've been looking again at the furs. I'm just going to do that one white. I've got just a couple of gradients on these ones. Just sort of taking them from one colour to the other. A stripe down the middle seems to be fairly effective. Okay, next up is some Menoth White highlight. As you can guess from the names, this works quite well. And once again, I'm watering it down quite thin. And I'm doing the same effect we did with the base, with the white. So instead of going all the way down to the bottom, I'm going to go into the sort of second section, and we've even got some streaks going on the top. This isn't a pure white, so it's still not too overwhelming at the top there. And because we've got it thinned down, I'm sort of building it up bit by bit, so it's got quite a nice transition, I think. I've also gone around and picked up the skulls and bones and everything in this. I think they're looking really good. This is the normal combination I use for sort of white skull type stuff anyway. So I've done this a few times before. Okay, so I've neatened those ropes up and I've re-washed them, so they're, as you can see, they're a little bit wet still at the moment. And I've put those studs in silver and then just put a little black wash around each one. Same with on the skulls there. I think that's worked. I gave those shields a bit of a highlight and another little wash. I think they've weathered in quite nicely. Just going around now, checking if there's any other bits and pieces I want to do. So far I've spotted this white skin. Got a bit of white scar. And I'm just going to give this a bit of a dry brush. Just to give the impression of shoulders maybe in there. Quite like that. I think that just leaves the ropes. So I've got the XV88 again, and I'm literally just going to pick out just the tops, so just as the light would come straight down. I'm just going to grab a little dot on each string. Just so then we've got three colours going on. We've got the pure XV88, then we've got the sort of washed one, and then we've got the dark in the recesses. And I think that's going to bring that texture out quite nicely. Okay, I think I can call these guys done now. So yeah, I finished those ropes up, and then for some reason, despite the fact that this paint job has taken me literal months because I keep putting it off, I thought, let's experiment with some tartan. Oh, it's not coming up very well on the camera. This actually doesn't look too bad in real life. It looks passable because the fabric's all folded up and stuff. I think there's still a little bit of work I can put in there to neaten that up, but I've done sort of crossed lines there, and in this one I've gone for a few different colours while still keeping it fairly monotone. I'm less happy with this one actually. I think this one did come out a little bit better, but I think it adds a little bit of detail to something that otherwise would have been a bit plain on the fronts of the models there. And actually I'm pretty happy with the way these came out. As I said, I've been putting these guys off for months. It's only that I didn't want to move house with them unpainted that they are finally done. Obviously the bases aren't finished. I don't have any access to the stuff that I want to base them with, but I'm going to build some more terrain to go with these, and I'll base them all together sometime in the new year when I've got access to all my stuff again. I've never painted resin scenery before. Normally all the scenery I paint is either MDF or stuff that I've built myself. And I kind of came at these initially like something that I'd built myself, and actually I should have been treating them a little bit more like just big models, which is more what they are. But no, I think these are fantastic. Don't know if I mentioned this already, but they're from Scotia Grendle. They are fantastic. I will be buying the Chieftain's Hut and the other set that goes with them, these ones, to go alongside these, I think, because I'm really happy with the way these have come out. And I think they're going to fit in really well on my forest board with the rest of my forest terrain and the other stuff I've got planned to go with them. And that's all for this video. Please let me know what you thought down in the comments. Maybe subscribe for more. And as ever, thanks for watching. Bye.